leads in, obviously, to having robust accounts and knowing your figures, is making sure that your customers, your clients, are paying you on time, and then so that you can pay your suppliers on time as well. Is so important, isn't it, to have positive relationships with suppliers as well as with your customers. When you have a supplier that you have a good relationship with, they will go to the nth degree to support you, and that's so vital as a small business. So Nicki, as I joked earlier, she's worth her weight in gold, but she really is. So Nicki helps people with their T's and C's and cash flow management and planning, etc. So literally, she's worth her weight in gold. So over to you, Nicki.
Thank you very much, Julia. So today I'm looking to talk to you about having the right process again. So we're going back to what other people have said about having processes in place. And now more than ever, actually, it's very important that we're very clear about who we want to do business with and how we want to do business with them, and how we're going to manage that relationship. So if I take you back right to the very beginning of it then, so you get this wonderful sales inquiry, it's very tempting to say yes to everybody. Because we want to make those sales. We want those sales, we want to be boosting our bank balances as much as possible. The first caveat on that, of course, is a sale is not a sale until it's paid for. And we may not, want to treat everybody the same. So do you accept every potential customer? And we need to really think about, is that what we want to do? And if we do, are we going to treat them all the same? So one of the things I do is terms and conditions, but actually you can have different criteria for different types of clients. And this is all about understanding what sort of risk that client is. And as we move into in and out of recession, the risk of that client changes. So think about, my first tip then is to define your customer acceptance criteria. So we're not talking about your marketing avatar here. We're talking about looking at their financial ability, their willingness to pay you, their ability to pay you, and also how can you find ways to say yes to the sale. So it's not necessarily about saying no, but it's about saying that actually giving everybody credit is probably not the right thing to do. You might say, actually, this is a high risk customer, and therefore I'm happy to do the sale, but you've got to pay me up front. And then there might be another customer that you say, well, actually, I'm happy to issue my standard credit terms. And there might be yet another one who's actually a really good opportunity for you, and you think they're very safe. So actually, you're prepared to give them extended terms to get them onto a better deal. So you need to think about your types of customers you want to deal with and what your acceptance criteria will be for them. So what will allow you to safely do business with them. Which leads me on to my next tip, which is to make sure actually that you really know who you're doing business with. And there's a whole raft of due diligence things that you can do. The biggest and most important tip though is to get all that right information from that client. So I have a template that people can use, which is an account sort of application or information form. But very often I come across people when I'm doing credit control for them, for instance, and I go into their Xero and they've got a name and an email address, or a name and a phone number, or they've got, the business name is wrong in Xero, so it's not quite the right business name, it's not the right legal name. So actually this form allows you to make sure you've got all of the right information. So the legal name, the trading name, potentially things like, if you're dealing with a bigger business, the person that's buying from you might not be the person responsible for paying you. Just making sure you've got that right information, so you know who you're to talk to when they're paying, you want to get paid. And things like, do they have set payment run times? Because it's all very well you saying, oh, my payment terms are 7 days, but if they only ever make a payment run at the end of every month, you need to factor that in when you're then looking at cash flow and whether you actually want to do business with them. So that leads you back to your acceptance criteria. So with a form like this, you can either give it to the client and ask the client to fill it in, or use it as a checklist for you while you're having conversations with them. But get all of that information in place before you start actually sending services and goods out the door. And then finally, my final tip for today is about having a written, and I mean written, process for managing late payments. A lot of us do it on the fly. So we look at our bank balance, we look at potentially the outstanding invoices and think, oh, I really need to do something about this. And so we start randomly calling people, or sending out emails, or using the reminder letters out of our account management system. You really need to have some structure around that so that you have a clear idea of what stage in the process each of your outstanding invoices are in. So you need to decide, how are you going to contact your customers? How are you going to communicate with them, and how often? And then think about things like what will be the penalties for late payment. So what are you going to say to clients? So at what point do you put them on stop, say, or suspend any further services? And also, if you do all of this stuff and you are not successful, what are your next steps? So is this something that you want to take on yourself? So going through the small claims court. Do you want to use the services of a reputable debt collections agency? And I say reputable because I know there's somebody on the call that is a really good friend of mine who's really reputable. So that's good. Or is it something that actually, do you think the value to effort ratio is not worth it? And therefore it's going to be written off. And therefore you need to think about your bad debts and your procedures there. So it's having that clear process for managing those late payments. Okay, so I'll just recap. Define your customer acceptance criteria. You don't necessarily have to treat everybody the same. Know your customer, so gather all the right information at the beginning of the relationship so that you can manage that relationship well going forward, and have a clear written process for managing late payments, and how you're going to deal with it right from first call right through to any remedial action you might have to take. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Nicki. Thank you. Invaluable as always. Thank you so much. Lots of value there. And I've put a link to the second point into the chat as well, so if you can pick that up.